My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Welcome to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to open dialogue regarding the difficult topics that we all face in life. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you very much for joining me this evening. This past Sunday was the launch for this podcast for me, and I want to thank all of those who have listened to the first episode, those who have shared it with their friends and family, and those of you who have subscribed. I do appreciate it very much. But this Sunday was also very tragic because it took the lives of 9 human beings in a horrific helicopter crash. Those victims were NBA legend Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, baseball coach John Altobelli, his wife Carrie, and their daughter Alyssa, mother and daughter Sarah and Peyton Chester, Mamba Academy basketball coach Christina Mauser, and the pilot Ara Zabayan. Growing up, Kobe Bryant was who every kid idolized. And although I was never a fan of the Lakers, I always had so much respect for Kobe as a person and a basketball player. And though his legacy will live on, he will be missed dearly, and so will the rest of the victims who lost their lives so tragically. I would like to take this time to pay my respects to the Bryant, Altobelli, Chester, Zabayan, and Mauser families. Let us have a moment of silence for them. You know, it's unimaginable that something like this could happen, and it really just goes to show you that you don't know how long you have on this planet. So squash whatever petty beefs you may have. If you haven't spoken to someone in who knows how long, call them. Don't text them, call them. And let them know how you feel, because this life could be over in an instant. And to all those who I haven't spoken to in a while, I want you to know I love you. I forgive you. Let us continue to break bread with one another, because at the end of the day, I just want everyone to love each other and be kind to one another. Once again, thank you very much if you did listen to my first episode. I ask that you please subscribe on whatever listening platform you're using, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even the Anchor app or website. Please subscribe, please share, and help me gain an audience. And really, just thank you for listening. I can't express how much I appreciate all the love that I have received so far. And I hope you keep going further with me on this journey, because I have so much more in store. All right, on tonight's episode, we are going to be talking about partisan politics and the divide that it is causing in our country. The definition of partisan is a committed member of a political party, and in reference to a multi-system party like the one we currently use, the term is used for politicians who strongly support their party's policies and are reluctant to compromise with their political opponents. And my friends, that is exactly what is happening in today's society. It's hard to think of a time where America wasn't this divided. We are about as divided over politics as they were in the 1860s during the Civil War. In Washington, D.C., hardly a day goes by without both Democrat and Republicans accusing each other of betraying the country and its core values. And around the country, partisan allegiances are fracturing relationships, all the way from the family level to community. Religious congregations have been falling apart over politics, and even marriages are falling apart due to politics. It's just a sad state that we are in right now. And I believe strongly that we should be able to talk to one another despite our differences, no matter what side of the aisle we're on. At the end of the day, we are all humans and we should have one goal, and that is to live a peaceful life. And it is so disheartening when you have people on both sides of the aisle who only want their party to benefit. Now, I have friends who are both Republican and Democrat, and I see and I hear it all the time. The constant blame they put on each other. I, myself, am an independent, and even certain independents are guilty of playing partisan politics. We all do it. We perpetuate this notion that the two major political parties are the only ones that matter, and that just isn't true. You know, I used to identify as a Democrat, and I used to point the finger at Republicans. And for so long, I couldn't understand how someone could vote for a man like Donald Trump. It wasn't until I started paying attention to what his voter base was saying that I was able to take a step back and realize that not all of his base supporters are racist, and not all of them hate the LGBTQ community or immigrants. For the most part, they supported him because the politicians of the past were not addressing the issues that most Americans face. When his campaign began, he ran on the platform of bringing jobs back to a country that was seeing record numbers of unemployment. He ran on the platform of protecting our borders and driving out all of the career politicians. So I get it. I understand why people voted for him. And although he hasn't kept or lived up to most of his promises, I can at least acknowledge that he has kept unemployment down and he has decreased the number of illegal immigrants getting into this country. Now, I am in no way a Trump supporter. Can't stand the man. But I understand why people voted for him. They thought that he was going to cure what ails this country. In my personal opinion, I think that he has aided in what ails this country in a lot of ways. But I'm open to listening to what he has to say, and I'm open to listening to the concerns that his supporters have. Even though I don't agree with most, to be nice, most of what he says or does. But I think it's important to listen to others, and I think that is one of the major problems that we have in society today. When we listen to someone speak, we don't listen to understand or comprehend. We listen to respond. So I urge all of you, the next time you find yourself in a debate, listen to understand and comprehend where other people are coming from. Because you will find that we have more in common than we do different. Now, as we become more socially distinct as partisans, it becomes so much easier to dehumanize the other group and to think that the other side is not only your opponent, but that they are your enemies and are dangerous. And that is a very, very scary road to travel down because it only leads to one place, which is war. And we've already had a civil war. We don't need to go down that road again. When a group of people feel like they are constantly being attacked just for having different views, it's only a matter of time before they decide to strike back. Earlier this week, I saw a news segment on CNN with Don Lemon and two of his guests. They were making jokes and ridiculing and mocking Trump supporters. The entire thing was classless and just plain wrong. I mean, how would you feel if you knew half of the country hated you because of your political ideologies? I'm going to play this clip for you guys real quick, and I would love to get your opinions on it. So please message me on Twitter at Marcus_Callahan or hit me up on Facebook and let me know your thoughts. Here's the clip.
It's hard that Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, the credulous boomer rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one and y'all elitists are dumb. You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though my math and your reading. Yeah, you're reading, your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte. All those lines on the map. Only them elitists know where Ukraine is. Sorry, I apologize. Oh my God! But you know what? It was Rick's fault. I blame Rick. But in all honesty, what NPR should do. Why not? Sorry, hold on. Wait. Can I tell you a second? Hold on. That was good. Sorry, Rick. That was a good one.
You see, these are the type of things that happen when you play partisan politics, because it allows you to view the other side as less than human, when in fact they're just as human as you are. Just because they have a different point of view than you or support a different candidate or policies than you, it does not make them less than you. And I think that is a lesson that the entire country needs to learn. It is time to do away with partisan politics. The pointing of the fingers, the blame, all of that has to go away. In order for this country to move forward and survive, we need bipartisanship. Before I go into that, I want to take a moment to thank my sponsor for this episode. All right, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to Anchor for sponsoring this episode. Without their platform, I wouldn't be able to record or distribute this podcast. So I do want to acknowledge them and give a huge thank you to them for allowing me to do this and bring this episode to you guys. Without further ado, let's get into bipartisan politics and why I think it is the future and what can save this country. Bipartisanship or nonpartisanship is defined as a political situation, usually in the context of a two-party system like our own, in which opposing political parties find common ground through compromise. I think this needs to be the type of government that is ran in the United States moving forward. We have seen the devastation that partisan politics has created among the American people. It has turned family members against one another. It has turned friends into enemies. And it has turned human beings into monsters. We have lost that basic respect that we should all have for each other. Bipartisanship would allow for everyone to be heard, for everyone to come together and make a difference. I think that needs to be what the future of this country is going forward. And it's not like it hasn't been done before. There have been multiple instances where both parties have put their differences aside for the greater good. In this last decade alone, there have been so many bipartisan laws that have been put into place. To name a few, there was the 2010 tax deal, the 2012 Jobs Act, the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2013. There was the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2016. in 2015, and in 2016, there was the 21st Century Cures Act. We have to put our differences aside, and we have in the past. So why not make it the norm moving forward? Whether you are a Democrat, Republican, or independent, it does not matter. All that matters is us as a country coming together to do the right thing. All right. Earlier this week, I posted a question on Facebook, which was, what are your thoughts on partisan politics? I only got one response, but I find it very, very interesting. It reads, quote, I feel that there's one party to blame more than the other because they chose to play dirty early on in history. Through the years, it's just evolved and immersed itself into everything we say, see, think, or do. In all honesty, it's scary because it's essentially what has made us as as a population soft and unable really to think for ourselves. Instead, everything is a preconceived notion that is taken out of context. End quote. Now, the reason I find this statement so interesting is because the statement proved my point. This statement is partisan politics. It's blaming one side over the other, and it does not matter if the statement is in reference to Democrats or Republicans because they both play into partisan politics. We need a change in this country, and it may not come from the people who are in office right now. It may not even come for decades from now, but I think it's important that we start having the conversation right now, because the more people who are willing to have this conversation, the better chance we have as a country at making the necessary changes that need to be made in order for us to move forward. Okay. In November of this year, we will have to elect another president. Some of you may want that to be Trump again. Others may want someone else. Before we can even get to that, though, we have to vote in the upcoming primary election. Now, there are a few Democratic candidates that have caught my eye. I think Bernie Sanders has good ideas, but is a little too old for my taste. Same with Joe Biden, although I'm not too big on his policy proposals. Most of the candidates want the same thing: health care for all, a living wage for all, and education for all. These are all ideas that I can get behind. And out of all the candidates running, I think Elizabeth Warren stands out the most. But there is one thing that I'd like my candidate to possess, and that is the fact that they embody what it means to truly be bipartisan. And only one candidate has that going for him: Andrew Yang. If you do not know who Andrew Yang is, then please Google him. He is the Asian guy who wants to give every American who is age 18 and above a dividend of $1,000 per month. But he is so much more than that. He is someone who has gone across the aisle to speak with supporters of Trump. He does not view them as his enemy. He strikes me as someone who really just wants to make the country a better place for not only his children, but for all of our children. And he is willing to work with whoever in order to get the job done. And his slogan, I love this. It's not left, not right, but forward. And to me, that is the true definition of bipartisanship. I would love to know who you all plan on supporting in this year's election. Reach out to me via Twitter at Marcus_Callahan, or you can find me on Facebook, and let's have a conversation about it. So that is going to do it for this week's episode. I want to take a moment once again to thank my sponsor, Anchor. Thank you all for listening, and please subscribe to my podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. You can also listen by downloading the Anchor app or going to anchor.fm and searching for Third Eye Podcasts. If you would like to become a supporter of this podcast financially, you can do so by going on the website and making a monthly contribution of 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. This would help me tremendously in getting better equipment so I can increase the quality of this show. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out to me via Twitter at Marcus_Callahan, or you can email me at marcuscallahan.89@gmail.com. I would absolutely love to have some of my listeners join me for a live conversation. Please be kind and share this episode with your friends and family and help me build my audience. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed week, and I will be back next Sunday with a brand new episode. Remember, love each other and be kind to one another. Take care.